Actually, since we're on DAWs, if people aren't familiar with a lot of what Dylan has done, and would like to know more, first of all, check out his channel. We'll have links in the description for everything. One of my favorites still is the DAW you created. In
Oh yeah.
Excel Studio, or I mean, sorry, not Excel. Excel Studio. Sure, it's now Excel Studio. But in Excel, how did
Mhm.
what the fuck? Where did that idea come from? And like how did that start?
Um, I think it's funny that you bring up jukebox as well, because those two things are like very related, and they kind of started at the same time. So it's been kind of like a running joke in the Ableton or producer community that like Ableton looks like an Excel sheet, and there's like memes of like people saying that they were drunk and up all night making like this sick banger, and then they wake up in the morning and actually they were just editing
Yeah,
an
yeah.
Excel sheet. I was like, oh, that's really good. Um,
So that's the
so
inspiration.
I love it.
um, I was at the time very still like analyzing a lot of songs. It's always been like, even like, doing the tutorials, essentially in some ways was a remake, or like I'm implying a lot of the same skills as a remake because I'm listening to songs and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm doing that for the tutorials as well. But song structure was always like, I feel like that's got to be like the beginning place essentially. I feel like I could make sounds that was never too hard, even if I don't. Yeah, like making sounds. Let's just say, okay, that wasn't a problem for me. Um, Not to say that I'm the best sound designer or anything, but I could make sounds that would be like, okay, I'm okay with that.
Hmm.
Um, and then chord progressions and melodies, I always felt like, not that I'm the best at it either, but I could do it. I could like make them if I needed to. But the finishing of the song part, where is the problem there? Where does that lie? And I always felt like that was just the sort of knowing what to put when and where. That's so
Right.
the arrangement and the song structure part. Um, so that was like something that I was really interested in, song structures, and I would even like kind of go back to my remakes or other songs and just sort of notate what is the structure of this, and where would I like write down these notations of. I thought, well, it would be Excel would be a great place for it, because I knew the meme that Excel kind of looks like a DAW anyways. So I was like, oh, well, I'm going to notate like these song structures in Excel, and then kind of take a look at it, get an overview of like what's going on, maybe like come up with some patterns and some rules that I can help follow my own. If I make my own song, I can be like, okay, well,
Right.
I know that the intro is like has this many elements, maybe like kick, clap, and snare, and then a percussion comes in, and it's very easy to say that, but I was just trying to come up with like a nice sort of rule to follow that I could always fall back on if I ever felt like I was getting stuck
Hmm.
with music. So I'm in Excel doing this sort of stuff, and I wanted to kind of uh, from like the existing sort of data that I had, essentially these like structures that I had written out, see if I could like generate my own structure, which was like a big leap. But at the time, I was like, seeing things like AI. There was like new AI advancements that could make pictures and
Right.
or music from scratch. I was like, whoa, this is a very cool field that's probably going to play more in our lives as time goes on. Um, I thought it was just a really cool thing, just generating it. And as the structures themselves were pretty basic, I didn't think it would be too hard to do. I was looking into what I could do with Excel and generate a pattern at least. It didn't have to be anything complex, but just, randomize something and give me
Right.
some sort of uh, thing back. And then maybe I could turn that, as a sort of source of inspiration sometimes. And I did do that. That was like one of the first things where I would just, it would just randomize a bunch of things like, oh, should this uh, bass pattern be 1 bar or 2 bars long, and should it have a percussion, and how
Right.
long should the intro do? It just give me like a bunch of these things, bunch of prompts essentially. So then, because I was learning how to use Excel, they have like a sort of coding language in the program called VBA. Uh, I was learning, how to do different things, how to generate a sound, how to do this and that. And I don't know what it was, but I was like really interested to see um, if you could like kind of play a generated thing that I had just arranged, for
Right.
instance, just to hear it back and be like, oh, that sounds nice, or if it's good. And then if it wasn't, I could just generate a new one. So kind of just get like a preview in a way
Right.
of
Right.
what I was working on inside without having to like, okay, remake it in FL Studio first. Um, and I kind of like Googled around. I wondered maybe somebody else had done something similar to this idea. And I'd found that I wasn't the first one to make a DAW in Excel, but not in the way that I had done it. But there was like a sort of arrangement tool.
Hmm.
I forget what it's called. I'll look it up. But it did like a very similar thing where you could like notate some sort of like MIDI essentially, or patterns of MIDI, and they would send them out to different locations. Like if you had an interface, then it would send those out to whatever's connected to the interface.
Right.
So like I wasn't the first one to do this in any sort of way, but it was not user friendly at all in any. It didn't make sense if you were like familiar with DAWs. It was very much just like working in an Excel office sheet. That's really what it looked like and kind of ran like. Um, so I wanted to kind of first sort of re-implement that in the context of like something that's much more familiar that we use.
Right.
So a lot of like the initial code of like being able to send a MIDI message outside of Excel using like sending it to like a virtual port essentially or to your interface, and then that would get connected to whatever your interface is connected to. That wasn't me. That was like an existing part. But then being able to like build my own sort of time-based drum machine that loops around, and then you fill out where those go in like a sort of very much like the channel rack in FL Studio. You have those like a step sequencer essentially.
Right.
Recreating that concept is what I did, and then being able to like change the MIDI notes and like what pitch it is, and the sort of different drum patterns that you could have. That was like the first iteration of that. And it took about 2 weeks to make. This was also like my first frontier into coding, but like 2 weeks doesn't sound maybe too long, but also I was working on it like nonstop because I don't know why or how, but I got hooked doing this, because what I discovered is that this was like a series of little like each bit that I had to do to make it was an own little challenge. So I'd be like, okay, how do I, just the fact to get it like something to move kind of on a time-based thing by BPM, how to do that was a challenge. And then getting it to loop around and store like a pattern that you'd created into like a separate location and then retrieve it. Those were like different all little problems that I had to overcome. And that was like really rewarding, figuring out how to do this. Right. And then it'd be like awesome. It'd be like a constant little feedback thing, because once I was done, then there was the next one, a new one to do. So like without really noticing, I got like addicted to this, of like this little problem solving thing. Which was, I think, really great, but it like was really surprising to like notice that I had fallen into this sort of trap in a way. Like, whoa, I've just spent 2 weeks doing this.
Come out of a 2-week coding haze, being just like, where am I?
Essentially, like, where am I? But yeah, I thought it was cool. It was novel. But I didn't know what people's reception were going to be. But I was doing like these weird, quirky things. Anyway, at the time, like I had a video about, using my voice to control instruments, which was just really turning it into MIDI, or like using MIDI signals to control Minecraft and play Minecraft using a MIDI controller. Those were like the cute little things that I was doing around the time. So it felt very much in the style of that, doing like, hey, what can I do that technically isn't really making music, but it's kind of related to making music.
Right.
Because I'm like just procrastinating from actually making music. So, this is why I'm doing this sort of stuff essentially.
So figuring out ways to be productive without being productive, but still kind of being productive.
Yes. I even like sort of, I've kind of coined a term for that, which is like productive procrastination, where like from not doing it, avoiding it, you spend that time doing something that's, still productive, but you're avoiding something else. Yeah. So you put so much energy in, the other thing that has become a productive thing.
I like that, productive procrastination.
Basically what my whole channel is essentially. So yeah, but yeah, it's just been like something that I've could continue to do. And this is the same thing with the drum machine. And so I just uploaded that, and it got like a lot of feedback, that much more than I expected. There was like some articles like, whoa, a drum machine in Excel. And I wasn't the first, and there wasn't also like the first person to do that. Also, had made some buzz, and there were like a couple articles. But I think the way I presented it in like a very step sequencer thing that anybody could download and like instinctively get, even if you haven't used like a DAW, you kind of like, you put a thing down, you press play. Right. It made a lot of like, sense what's going on here. I think that was like the big appeal of it. And yeah, then after that, I was like, okay, well, I was continuing to work on Excel because I was still doing this sort of like the generation of the song structure. That was still like what I was working on. So I was still spending a lot of time in Excel. I was like, okay, well, why not just build it out into a whole entire thing, into an actual DAW? I already had the step sequencer. So really, I just needed like a piano roll and then like a place to put these patterns. And it was much harder than just said, simpler said than done. Mm-hmm. It took like another 2 months to get all that done. But again, it was still like a very fun experience.
What up, Buttons? Thanks for watching these clips with us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you want to check out our Patreon, links are in the description. And if you want to see more videos, try checking some of these out right here. Yeah, they're pretty good. This one especially. I'm sure this one's great. Yeah, go ahead. Click on it. Go on.